Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening in the stars above for the week ahead. It's Monday, and it's actually quite the busy week ahead as we are changing seasons, which means we change up the energy. We have the North and the South node shifting into other gates. And hold on, my phone is ringing here. And we also have Jupiter changing gates this week. So it's a big week. Shifting sands is how I kind of feel like there's no like strong footing yet. The things that we thought we could depend on or the things that we thought were solid turn out to not be so solid. They're sort of see-through, clear, right? Transparent. And the things that were transparent or not so clear are becoming more clear. So it gives us this feeling of things shifting and morphing and not quite sure where to land. But indeed, we will find a new foot purchase out there in the world. Thank you for the birthday wishes out there, Debbie and Julie. It is so interesting to be working on my birthday. Typically, I don't think my birthday, I guess maybe it's just been the last couple of years, it's been over the weekend days. So I wasn't on air on my birthday. And there's an interesting thing happening. So, uh, timing. Like I knew that my solar return was at 7:27 West Coast time this morning. And so I had it in my head that, Terry would already be gone to work and I would be able to, even if it's just a few minutes before I, would be coming on air, that I would be able to organize myself around sort of a meditation of what was coming and, all of that. Instead, I hear Terry still bumping around in the house, and I looked down at my computer clock and it was 7:29. I went, "Oh my God, I missed my birthday." And then my next thing was, "Why are you here, Terry? Why didn't you leave already?" Because he never leaves at 7:30 to go to work. He used to, but I guess now he doesn't have to because the kids are out of school. So he doesn't have buses to try to contend with, etc. But either way you look at it, I missed my birthday by 2 minutes. Not that it really makes that big of a difference, but I thought, okay, is this going to be a theme this year? And then I got all ready for the show this morning. I was sitting here with all my stuff and I was just finishing writing some notes to make sure I didn't forget to say something. And I look up and it says, "Oh, it's showtime." Well, I don't know how long it had said showtime, probably a minute or less. But either way you look at it, again, timing. And as I'm looking ahead, I I feel like the time is an issue, not just for me, even though it seems sort of prevalent in my life this today. But maybe there's something about time coming undone that is something we're working through with the summer solstice upon us, right? We have the summer solstice occurs actually on the 21st at 10:58 a.m. East Coast time, 7:58 a.m. West Coast time. And as we've done before, I drew up a chart for that solstice so that we could take a look ahead at what is it that we look at in terms of actions for the next 3 months, right? It's like it's almost like a birth chart, right? But it's a birth chart for the season. So we get an idea of what maybe the challenges might be or what the things ahead that we can look at. But we also have so many other things going on this week. So we have actually quite a bit to talk about this morning. And I'm sure if you have questions, you can post them down in the comment section. If you are on YouTube and if you are on Facebook, you can also type those in and I will see them. So thank you, Natasha and Kajella. Good morning to you. And Julie, I did say good morning, but I meant good morning to Julie and Debbie as well. Great to have you with us this morning. So we start the week with the moon in Cancer. And I could have told you yesterday when it switched over because I became a different person, right? I have my own rising sign in Cancer and I have my own Mercury in Cancer. So when the moon is moving through Cancer, I begin to feel and think maybe more emotionally, right? My typical moon in Virgo, keeps the emotions sort of to dull roar. But when the moon goes through Cancer, I get emotional. And it doesn't mean emotional sad. I mean, we were having a great time yesterday celebrating Father's Day and my birthday together at my daughter's house, who has a new hot tub. So of course we had to christen that with all the family being there, and having a good day despite the weather, which was kind of cold and gloomy, but it did turn out pretty good. And it gives us a time to spend with family. The moon in Cancer really is very home, family, roots oriented, right? It takes in all of the internal us, right? The things that support us as human beings. And typically we think of that as family or our home, our connections with the people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your blood family. It can be, whoever it is that you count as family. So it's an interesting time when the moon moves into Cancer, because it does start to turn us a little bit more internal, right? Natasha, you know this well. You're a triple Cancer, if I'm not mistaken. So there's this, time that we have to take to really look at what's going on in the internal planes. And that can often then set us up for the shifting moods and things that as we're responding internally or responding externally to the internal, right? But by and far away, Cancer is a nurturing sign. It's caring, it's protective, right? It's the mother, the great mother energy. And it is the embodiment then of all of that caring energy, the empathy that is shown through that sign toward the caring, nurturing, growing of things and people, right? Our families, of our children, plants, and our animals, and all that type of thing. It is also emotional, right? That's the one thing we know about the moon ruled sign of Cancer, is that it changes the moods, right? Moodiness becomes an issue. Maybe not an issue that's a bad issue, just a thing that we recognize that our emotional world is changing more rapidly, perhaps in the 2 or 3 days that the moon is in the sign of Cancer. And we may flop from being very caring and nurturing and demonstrating love to then turning around and becoming more internalized, kind of withdrawing or being more quiet. So those are things that we just expect with the moon in the sign of Cancer. But it is also a very loving, understanding sort of energy, right? We really kind of have our hearts out on our sleeves a little bit during the moon in Cancer. It is intuitive energy as well, right? Intuition is very high, tapping into the inner knowing of the moon. And the biggest thing I think for Cancer that we are always on the watch for is the need or the urge for safety and security. And that can mean sometimes that we're a little more defensive during this period of time. We may really long for a feeling of belonging, finding our people, finding our tribe, our community, our base, right? Who is it that we really resonate with? But other kinds of security go along with this. Financial security, food security, right? Often we do a reevaluation of where is it we have enough and where we don't have enough, right? Enoughness is one of the themes of the moon in Cancer. And sometimes that means that we are overdoing it, like we are doing things to make to protect ourselves more. Sometimes we're doing it to have a feeling of, the world is all right when my cupboards are full, when the bills are paid, when my family is around me. There's contentment in the sign when we have the situation where we feel good, we feel safe, or we feel secure. So it's a good day. We have the moon in Cancer. Let's see, today and tomorrow afternoon, the moon will shift out of Cancer and into the sign of Leo. So we have the uh, summer solstice. At least here in the northern hemisphere, it was the same in the southern hemisphere, because I did a radio show broadcast with Angel Heart Radio last week on the summer solstice for Down Under. So today we'll talk about it for those of us above the equator and all of the things that might come to us. But it is a time as well as we shift from the moon being in Cancer to the sun being in Cancer. So we start a longer period of time where the energy of caring and support and empathy and loving and understanding, but also growing. There's something to be said about Cancer and growing energy. Of course, growing is what's required for things to grow, our children, our own knowledge, etc. It's about caring and nurturing, right? You have to care and nurture something if you want it to grow. So the caring and nurturing also comes into play now as the sun prepares to move on into the sign of Cancer. Now, before I jump into then what the solstice will bring, there's something else going on today, and that's Jupiter in a sextile to Saturn. So we have two opposite principles here. Jupiter is the principle of growth and expansion. Everything gets bigger, everything is amplified, feelings can be amplified. If it feels good, I want more kind of amplification. It can amplify not just feelings and emotions, but everything, in our lives. And then we have the principle of contraction, Saturn on the other side here. So Saturn likes to bring things in for focus, due diligence, because you're having to, take and walk down the steps of your life or your goals or your aspirations. And when we have these two coming together, I always seem to feel like this is a foot on the brake, foot on the gas kind of feeling, like ready, set, go, but the wheels are spinning. In a sextile, however, we have a common ground between the two. So while Jupiter may be, pushing us to grow and expand, Saturn's presence in this relationship is helping us to make sure that we're doing it in a right and perfect way, or in a more sustainable way, right? So there's some sustainability added to the nature of growth and expansion for us as we begin this week. Now, Jupiter is in the sign of Taurus, an earth sign, while Saturn is in Pisces, a water sign. So when we're looking at these two, how do Pisces and Taurus get along? How do they support one another? Pisces is supplying, and in this case, Saturn even supplying the imagination, perhaps the creativity, maybe even allowing us a little more focus on that imagination and creativity, while Jupiter in Taurus says, okay, let's ground it in. Let's make it real, right? So we can take the imagination. So it's almost kind of funny how they're in signs that support the others' best traits. So Saturn, typically the leader of an earth sign, Capricorn, Taurus, an earth sign. So Saturn still lending his ability here in this, through this relationship. Jupiter as well, typically ruling a fire sign, but also Pisces, right? He, in the more traditional astrology, Neptune didn't exist yet. So it was Jupiter that ruled Pisces, and the more modern ruler now, of course, being Neptune. So we have some good vibes between these two planets that start our week, but also start the ending to our spring season here above the equator. All right. So thank you, Londa. Good morning, Christine. Good morning, Tom. Great to have you joining us. Londa says nurture relationships. Indeed, it's all of those things that we want to nurture in the best way, but also nurturing ourselves. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how that's going to play out in as we move through the broadcast here, because the nodes, of course, have been sitting. The North Node has been sitting at the gate 27, which is a gate of nurturing and nurturing ourselves, right? Factoring ourselves and our own needs into into anything before we take action. And on the 23rd, so later this week, is that Friday? Yep, that'll be Friday. The nodes are going to shift out of those nurturing energies and into a different type of nurturing energy. So I can't wait to tell you about that. So first, though, let's talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow, June 20th, we have the new Human Design Week, and it sets the stage for the summer solstice. So in human design, all of the seasons, the equinoxes and the solstices, both, winter, summer, and spring and fall, turn on what we call gates of love. So it seems like every season em- opens us up to embracing more loving energy. So it always begins, no matter where you live on this planet, the seasons begin in the gates of love, right? And there are four gates of love, right? There's the gate of the love of spirit, gate 25. There's the gate of the love being in the physical, that's gate 46. Then there's the gate 10, which is self love, and the gate 15, which is the gate of the love of humanity or compassion for our fellow human beings. And different iterations of those gates happen at each seasonal opening. So the one that we find ourselves at this week, right, as we start to move into the solstice, is the gate 15 at the sun and the gate 10 at the earth. Now, let me just remind you what the energy of the sun earth combination is in human design, right? The earth, where you have your feet on the ground, where you have to take practical action steps to move anything, any kind of energy, right? We can't just sit on the mountaintop. There's always some kind of action that we have to take in the physical world. So the earth often is the challenge that we meet to move forward or to elevate or to embrace evolution, to evolve, right? To bring more consciousness to something. So the earth at this moment will be at gate 10, or on the 20th starting tomorrow, will be at gate 10. And gate 10, these are gates, by the way, that are all on the identity center. So the G center, sometimes we call it the magnetic monopole, it's also called. It is an attraction force in us that acts as a compass to guide us and lead us into the right direction. Well, the gate 10 is the gate of self love. So the earth at this moment in this week is telling us, in fact, this will be from June 20th through the 25th. So taking us close to the end of the month, where the challenge is to really learn to love ourselves, to nurture love within ourselves, right? Self love. And it is that very thing, self love, that is required in order for us to reach the high energy of the sun at the gate 15, which is called the gate of compassion in quantum human design. In traditional human design, it was the gate of the love of humanity, right? Loving our fellow humans, and all of that ability for us to be empathic and compassionate and to love our fellow humans is predicated upon our being able to love ourselves, right? How could we possibly love others if we didn't have at least some form of self-love for ourselves, right? That is often where sociopaths and psychopaths go wrong, right? They short circuit that whole idea of loving themselves, and then that makes the outer world, or the human beings in the outer world, less meaningful to them, right? It's difficult to really be able to love others completely, or even in any kind of way, if you don't have some form of love for yourself. So that is sort of the challenge that is down before us as we move through tomorrow, beginning that week. But it's also the energy of the solstice, right? The solstice energy. I want to check something really quickly in my ephemeris that we talked about during the Astro Design meetup last week. Um, the actual solstice day is on the 21st, and it is the sun and the earth will be in the line 2 in during that time. So the solstice doesn't always start when the sun and earth move into the line 1, the first line of the kind of tweaking in of what the energy of that gate means. So we start the solstice then with the sun and earth at the gate, or the line 2. And so let me see if I can, I mean, is everybody understanding that? I mean, is anybody kind of lost in what we're talking about? Please let me know in the thing so I can either share my screen and do something, that shows you more or what have you, right? Or we can just keep going. So when the season shifts, we are going to be in the line 2 of the gates, 15 and 10. That is a gate that is about withdrawing a bit. It is called the gate, or I mean, the line of the hermit, if you will. And what is the purpose of being in that kind of energy? It's about self evaluation. It's really coming into one's self and one's own power, um, and the seasonal shift then would seem like a really good time for us to do some contemplation, right? To really sort of look deeper into, who we are, what we're doing, where we want to go. You know what an evaluation is, right? Let's look at, how am I feeling health wise? How am I feeling financially? How am I feeling relationship wise? How's my career going? How's my spiritual life going? And on, right? So it seems like the solstice begins then with an opportunity for us to do some self-searching and to really come back into checking in with ourselves to see what is next for us. But in the bigger picture, it is about becoming more self-loving, and then through that process of becoming more self-loving, we are able to offer more love and empathy, compassion to our fellow human beings. Okay, Pauline says she's lost, but no matter. No, if you're lost, it is a matter. It matters. So hold on 1 minute. Let me see if I can't make this a little clearer. Ooh, where am I going? That is I did not know that my birthday was now a national holiday. Did you know that? It's Juneteenth. I don't know when that happened, but my husband was like, "Oh, hey, did you know your birthday's now a holiday?" I love it. And the energy of it is freedom. How fun is that? Um, so I actually want to be on my site. Okay. And no, that is not where I want to be. Oh my gosh. Well, Pauline, you know what? You and I are going to meet again soon. I'll have to explain it to you then because I had to change. I don't know. Is anybody else having browser issues? Browser issues. Like I was using Microsoft Edge successfully for months since I had this computer. So for a year and not having any problems. And then a couple of weeks ago, it just started misfiring all the time. No matter what I would do, there was a problem. Every page I went to, it would come up with something that said wait or leave. Like it just started. So I went back to Chrome. But then when you go back to a browser that you haven't used in a while, all of your passwords and everything are not quite there. So I don't want to, I can't get into what I want to get into. So you and I'll talk about that if we need to. But the basics then of what I was saying is that in every gate, there are 6 lines that the planets will move through. So the sun will be in the line 1, sun and earth will be in the line 1, then the line 2, then the line 3. And that just gives us a little bit of a deeper picture about what that energy is about, right? So kind of a different facet, if you will, a six faceted diamond of energy at gate 15. And through each of those different lines, it's going to give us a little bit different picture, right? When we get to the 15 tomorrow is where we start the sun at the gate 15, it'll enter into that line at the gate or at the line 1, which is about investigating, right? Seeing, digging, researching, wanting more information, standing on your own, independence. Then it moves into the 2, then the 3, kind of like degrees of the zodiac, right? Only there's just 6 of them and not 30. Okay, I hope that helps. All right, so now the sun then at the gate 15, the love of humanity, is the highest that we are reaching for. We're reaching for a more loving relationship with our fellow humans on the planet, more loving acceptance, more tolerance of each other and our differences. Um, stepping out of judgment, right? Stepping out of judgment, because really, if you're judging others, it's really just a reflection of the judgment that you're holding for yourself, or that you judge in others. So the relationships are all just these reflections to us of what's going on with us. So again, it brings us back to self-love. From a position of self-love, you see something different in others. So we have a whole week's worth of that kind of energy. And it's actually the energy that begins the whole of the season, which means that we can, kind of like in a Pleiadian Earth week where we have the one energy and it's sort of the overlighting energy for the 13-day week. Well, these gates of love are sort of the overlighting energy for the entire season, in this case, 3 months until we get to the autumn equinox. All right. So even though it's just a week's worth of love of humanity and love of self, it is sort of the tone setting energy, if you will, for that season. And now when we look at the summer solstice, then when we are looking, we could look at the solstice as if it's a person or it's an event, right? And events have charts because there's a time, a birthplace, which you could name anywhere on the planet, and find the moment that the sun, in this case, goes to zero of Cancer. That's what the summer solstice is astrologically, zero Cancer. And the chart then will show you where the placement of all the planets are for that event. And then we can treat it just like a person, right? Only we don't talk about it as relationships or in love and that kind of thing, as we would a human. We treat it more as the bigger, more mundane, I guess, energy of what is happening out there. Now, the first thing that we look at in this chart then is the sun. We're zero Cancer, and what we know where zero Cancer is, but what is it impacting? What is the relationship of zero Cancer to the other planets? And literally, the sun is not making that many aspects to other planets. So the sun is kind of purified a little in this instance. We have a trine between Saturn, or Saturn and the sun. That's a good flow of the energy of focus and sustainability and conservation and, using our energy wisely. There is a square to Neptune, which I think in this case just asks us to raise our ourselves up to a higher spiritual authority, maybe challenging us a little bit to do that. And there is an inconjunct to, no, not, it wouldn't be an inconjunct. It would be, let me see, where is Pluto? It is an inconjunct to Pluto by the sun. And that could be a little more difficult, telling us that we have to adjust some things within ourselves or in how we live or in how we interact with others. But by far and away, this is a pretty mild chart. But then you look at, well, where's the moon? The moon is the reflective piece here. And the reflection here is of a lot of planets sitting in Leo, right? We have the moon in Leo that day, Venus in Leo that day, the black moon Lilith in Leo, Mars in Leo, and Pallas Athena in Leo. And Leo energy then seems to, you could almost call it a stellium. We've got moon, Venus, Mars. That's enough, I think, to cause it to be a stellium. And Leo energy is about how do we individuate, right? How do we stand out in the crowd? How do we express ourselves uniquely, authentically, and with authority in the world? How do we lead by example of what to be, who to be, what to do, when to do it, those kinds of things? So we have a lot of this Leo energy that is also highly creative. Right? This is very creative energy. So it lends itself, I think, nicely to our being able to create from a world that we want to live in, right? To see that that we really do impact the future, right? That we really can, by our attitudes, by our beliefs, our ability to transform, our willingness to transform, that we have the opportunity to really impact change on the planet. Yet Leo is a fixed sign. So we have the fixed nature of Leo that is sometimes, with the Black Moon Lilith here for sure, is afraid of change. It's so dynamically interesting when you think about Leo. When you think about Leo energy, it's usually, here I am, I'm, full of myself, if you will. Um, I I'm very confident, right? There's confidence in this energy. Um, and in the negative, of course, that overconfidence can breed narcissism or arrogance. On the other side, it can breed, lack of confidence and unsure, lack of self-esteem, that kind of thing. But the biggest problem with Leo energy is not wanting to change. That's the fear. The fear of change is what goes on if you look at the Black Moon Lilith here. So we have, what is it that we are afraid of changing in our own lives personally, right? Where are we afraid to take the next steps? Where might we be holding ourselves back? Maybe we're afraid of being seen or being, stepping into our true power. Your true power is in you expressing yourself, your uniqueness in the world, whatever that might be. So that's an interesting dynamic, I think, for the solstice energy, is doing the most self-loving thing in the service of loving humanity, right? So it's an interesting time. Now, the ascendant of the chart, at least as it relates to the East Coast of the United States, because that's what I've done the chart for, is Virgo energy. So we have, the need to get some purifying going on, right? To sort of weed through all of the things that could be and choose the ones that are correct and sort of release the ones that are not correct for us as individuals. Um, but then also to form a plan. Virgo is really very organized and practical. So we have a personality, if you will, or this chart of the solstice has a personality that's really saying, okay, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's analyze what needs to be done first. Let's roll up our sleeves and then let's do it. Right? Let's make these changes. Let's move forward. Let's uh, really see the potential when we take new action or when we step out of our comfort zones. Very interesting energy, I think. Now, the other populated part of this particular chart is Taurus. Taurus is the midheaven of the summer solstice, and it is in a sort of conjunction to the planet Uranus. So I would expect some surprises through the summer, right? I would expect that there might be things that are shocking for us this summer. There might be things that upset, again, our comfort zone, right? Taurus, Earth, comfort zone has to be shaken up a little. So Uranus there shaking things up. And it could be unexpected to the good, right? I'm kind of interested in how the economy seems to be doing really well. I don't know how long that will be. Maybe just until Jupiter is, out of Taurus, or until Jupiter has the conjunction next year with Uranus. But at least for this seasonal shift, it appears that the financial picture is kind of rosy, or at least stable, right? A little more stable than what we might have expected as we looked at the spring chart. That kind of was like volatility. There was some volatility in that one. This doesn't look so volatile. It looks much more surprising, but also possibly opening up new pathways or ways for us to be different, right? To engage at a different level. Of course, Jupiter is also in Taurus, as is the North Node still in the sign of Taurus. And Jupiter having us look at growth in terms of our relationship to money, our relationship to one another, right? In our relationships, our relationship to the earth, right? To the earth herself, to the animals of the earth, to the waters of the earth, to the agriculture, how do we utilize space on the earth. So all of that is in the summer solstice. And it does make me wonder a bit about, there's so much talk all the time about global warming and all of this, is it human caused, or is it just a natural fluctuation of the climate? And I feel like there's how can I put this? I feel like there's a dialogue that's running in the world that is not necessarily, it's blaming and shaming humanity more than it is, okay, what can we do if we come together? Taurus is the master builder sign, the master manifesting sign. When the bull puts its formidable weight behind something, it's immovable, right? So what if we as humanity, rather than listening to all of the bell ringers out there about whether something's happening or not, what if we just put our weight into doing things in a very simple way? The most simplest way to move forward with climate change, if indeed it's something that humanity is, a culprit in, is to creating a sustainable way of, being in the world, right? Utilizing clean energies, developing, having the will to move away from the things that we know don't have a positive impact on the environment. But it takes will, right? That's the thing. We have to have the will to do it. And not just you and me have the will, but we have to be able to utilize our will in the world to push corporations to do what's right, right? So it's such an interesting time that we're in, as we start to see that we have power to the people, right? Power in movements, that when people come together and want certain things, there's a lot of power behind that. And we could come together and power for the highest expression of compassion and empathy for our human family. That's kind of this thing that I'm seeing here. But there's this Chiron that's still in Aries. And in this chart, if this chart were a person, it would be in the 8th house, which is a house of death and rebirth or regeneration. And Chiron is the wound of identity. Who are we? Right? Who are we in this? And we are a tapestry of 7 billion or so people on this planet, and yet there's a lot of people that really just don't know who they are, and they make choices that sometimes they don't even make choices, right? They just settle for things. And of course, that's going to be a big theme coming up: settling. Where are we just settling for things? So the solstice giving us some opportunities to choose direction, choose how we want to build, choose simplifying, right? So there's that. And then Pisces energy is activated by both Neptune and Saturn in it. Saturn retrograde at the solstice. So we have Saturn moving backwards through the territory that he entered into in March. So we might be seeing some reverberations of themes that have come up in our own lives during that period of time. So for these next 3 months, we might be, doing further evaluation. What are you doing, Binksy? She's being a crazy kitty today. So it's just interesting, I think, when we look at this chart. It's not a gentle chart, but it isn't a volatile chart necessarily either. I feel like, unlike spring, where we knew that there were going to be fireworks, right? That things were going to be a little crazy, breathless even. I think I used that word back then. This one feels more like an opportunity where things maybe modulate a bit and we can choose what to do next, right? What to build next. How to apply our imagination, how to apply our creative energy to get to where we want to go. So Pluto, of course, on the solstice at 29 degrees of Capricorn, where he will be all the way through the end of July. So there is this somewhat simmering something under the surface. The 29th degree is very effusive, right? It's building up to expression of something, of the culmination of something. But it's hard to say how that's going to play out, in this. I think that one is going to be seen in the bigger context of the world. And the structures and forms that were already collapsing as Pluto moved into Capricorn, and how are we going to deal with that as we move forward into Aquarian energy, which of course doesn't happen again until January 2024. So all in all, a good chart, a good solstice, lots of opportunities, I think, for us as individuals to really stand out in our own authority and really bring our path of service forward to the planet and look to where it is that we can build something of a lasting nature, right? Something that will stand the test of time. All right. So that is on Wednesday, by the way, the summer solstice, but also that day, Mercury is in a sextile to Mars. So our actions and our thoughts kind of aligning in a way to help us move ahead. So to me, that's a really good transit. On the 22nd, which is on Thursday, the day after the solstice, Jupiter is moving from the gate 27, the gate of nurturing that we have for the last 3 months been working through. How do we nurture ourselves? How do we become accountable for our own sense of nurturing, but also empower others to do their own nurturing, right? Not smother mother, but nurture, right? Nurture, teach, right? There's teaching energy. How do we teach our kids, our families about what we want, about how they can empower themselves, about how to take care of themselves, how to factor themselves into the nurturing equation, right? You can't just give and give and give without receiving, right? It has to be a balance. Well, now Jupiter is moving over into the gate 24, and the gate 24 is on the ajna, the second center down, reaching up to the head center. So if any of you have the gate 61 defined in your human design, now you'll have the whole channel 6124, which is called the channel of rationalization. And all of that is going to be defined for you. So now you would have a defined head and a defined ajna. You'd want to be very careful that you don't start making decisions from the mind, right? The mind becomes very activated. That can mean that you have a lot of thinking power, a lot of calculation and analyzing power, but it can also create anxiety if you are hanging too much on the results of what you're thinking about instead of taking action in the physical based on what your authority is, whether it's emotional, splenic, meaning intuitive, or is it body wisdom that's, knowing what needs to be done in the moment or what's right in the moment. So we'll want to be careful of that. Others of you don't have anything at 61, and having 24 is maybe new to you as well. So this might be new energy. If you already have the 24 defined, this isn't going to be new energy, but maybe more compounded, more intense, perhaps. We'll see how that's going to play out. But Jupiter is moving into the gate 24, which in traditional human design is called the gate of rationalization, which is so not sexy at all. And in quantum human design, I prefer this word. It's the blessings gate. So it has this positive potential as well. And anytime we have Jupiter, it is growing and expanding on an issue or on an energy. So in this case, it's expanding the idea of blessings, expanding the focus on rationalizing. And primarily, this gate is sometimes a place where we settle for less, right? We just rationalize. And this is how this gate gets this name, because in the mind, we just rationalize away why we don't have what we want or why something didn't happen the way it should have happened, or why good things don't happen for me, or why bad things always happen to me, those kinds of things. It becomes these rationalizing things. And literally, the way to counteract rationalizing is through blessings or through gratitude, right? Seeing the rightness in everything, whether it was good or bad, right? Good or bad, it doesn't really matter here. What we want is to focus on the blessings behind the experience. What did I learn? What was I protected from? Who did I meet in the process? Who did I become in the process? All of those things become the blessings of the experiences in our lives. So Jupiter here wanting us to grow and expand this, right? We can look at anything. You can look at anything in the outer world. You can look at anything that's happened in your personal life. And instead of rationalizing now why it happened or why you always have those things happen to you. Instead, be grateful for the experience and see if you can find the little blessing in it, right? And focus on that, because what we focus on gets bigger, right? So focusing bigger on um, gratitude. And I think underneath all of this, what we are struggling with during this time Jupiter will be in the gate 24 is what we deserve, what we think we deserve versus what we allow, or what we truly deserve versus what we allow in our lives. So you might struggle between what you deserve versus what you think you deserve. Like, deservingness is so interesting, isn't it? Because it can limit us in such strange ways, right? We could have this pattern, let's say, of only ever making so much money. And so we assume, probably incorrectly, that that's all we're worth, right? Or that's the best I can do. And we can rationalize, well, there's no other customers, or there's, no, I'm, held to only making this amount of money by an employer that doesn't want to pay more. Those kinds of things are rationalizations, right? Rather than seeing the blessing in what's going on and seeing that you are the one in control and can always be changing, what you're doing or where to go or how you're doing what you're doing. We get stuck. So think about the fact that you deserve everything you desire. The very fact that you might desire something better tells you it's possible for you. Otherwise, it wouldn't even enter your mind, right? It wouldn't even enter your mind that you could make $100,000 a year if you were only making $50,000 a year right now, if it wasn't possible for you to do it, right? That's the other thing, right? We settle, I'll just stay right here, but I know I really want up here. And if you didn't want up there, then it's probably not correct for you. But the fact that you want it tells you something about it. It tells you, ooh, this is in the realm of possibility. If I can become deserving, if I can take action, if I can see myself as deserving, because there's nothing you need to do to deserve any of it. You just have to take action toward it. That's the deal, right? But the shadow here in this gate that Jupiter will really be bringing to us during this period of time is about how we're staying stuck in old patterns, how we rationalize why we don't get what we want, right? Instead of taking responsibility or becoming accountable for taking the next steps, we rationalize it away, or we give up our power to it. And by the way, I should take a look and see. I think Jupiter will be here for a month. So it enters in here on the 22nd and is at gate 24 until July 28th. Which is interesting too, because then it moves into the gate of allowing. That'll be fun. So Jupiter always magnifying, making it bigger, amplifying the effect of blessings in this case. So find the blessings in your experiences, even the painful ones, and use your experience of these things in your life to catalyze a transformation, to catalyze change, to empower you to make a difference, right? For yourself and for others. All right. Then on the 23rd, Friday, we have the nodes shifting. Now, in human design, the nodes shift more frequently than what it appears that they shift in astrology. So in astrology, the nodes spend about 18 months in one sign, backing into the sign, right? They come in at the 29th degree and move to the 0 degree, and then move into the 29th degree of the next sign, and so on. So that's an 18-month process in astrology, which we could, whittle down to decanates and things like that. So we could look at it that way, but we just don't really in astrology. But in human design, there are more gates that these energies will go through. So when we're looking at the gates that are going to come up for the next shift, it gives us probably about 3 or so months of energy that we'll be focusing on in terms of our trajectory. What path do we take next, right? Where do we go next? Where do we go from here, right? So should move my coffee. So our nodes have been sitting for 3 months now at the gate 27, the north node. What do we need more of? And that was more of self-nurturing and self awareness, being accountable for your own well-being, and helping others, teaching others how to be accountable for their own well-being, and letting go of the gate of struggle, or the gate of meaninglessness, the gate 28, and finding meaning. In other words, right? We want to have meaning. We don't want to just keep succumbing to meaninglessness and doing things that are sort of daring, or that are born out of restlessness, or born out of some kind of feeling of I just need to find, something that makes me feel alive. Um, and instead of that, working toward more self-nurturing, nurture those things within yourself that you love, nurture the relationships in your life that you love. Now we're going to shift out of that energy to the energy of the gate 3, which is a gate that sits on the sacral center, and it moves from the sacral down toward the root center. And Pluto is sitting at the gate 60, the opposite gate. And that whole channel is called the channel of innovation, of inventiveness, and it's mutative energy. And when in human design, when we talk about mutative energy, there's this quality of change that comes along with it, a quality of being different, of seeing things differently, of being different, literally, right? Changing up the dynamic. So with the North Node, our destiny pushing us to be more innovative, to be more inventive, to be more willing to change. Joining up with Pluto, we have some powerful transformational energy for the next 3 months. So be ready for that. Now, the South Node, what do we have to let go of? What do we need less of? And what we need less of is at the gate 50, a gate that's also on the spleen, that is a gate of fear. But this is an interesting one, because it is the fear that we're going to fail in our responsibilities to our family, to our tribe, to our spouse, to our children, which then can kind of create a reverberation, a reverb of our doing more controlling things, trying to make sure everybody's going to be okay, rather than letting go of those apron strings. We tie them tighter. So the 50, what we have to let go of is the feeling that we are always responsible for other people. Now, certainly, if you're a mother or a father, you're responsible for raising your children, right? There is that responsibility there. But your responsibility isn't about controlling them. It's about helping them to see, instilling values in them, and helping them to see how to become a productive member of the family or of the world, how to find their uniqueness, and how to live out the highest and best for them. Not to control their every movement, right? So there's that. And the fear in that gate that we might fail in that responsibility can cause us to become corrupted. Now, not corruption like we think of in terms of politics, or corporations, where we have this corrupt way of doing things, or the people that are doing corrupt things. This is corruption where we misread the signs, we misread the information. So much like when you're downloading a program, like to your laptop or phone or anything like that, that app can get corrupted. So sometimes we have to delete that and re-upload it or re-download it, right? Corruption. So what we're looking at is the way that we've misread information in the past. So the past, what has caused us to create from fear rather than to create from love, right? They're just the opposites of one another. So we have this opportunity to reduce our fear and to become more inventive, to become more changeable, right, during this period of time. And let's see, we are in that gate up until August 27th. So good chunk of the summer, right? All about our being inventive, being willing to change, being open to mutation, being open to seeing things in a different way. And I also have another thought about that. The channel 3 to 60 is a channel of mutation at the genetic level. Are we all in the midst of an evolutionary leap in our DNA? At the DNA level, some change that's coming about. We know in human design in 2027, there is an evolutionary leap that will take place. But is there something changing in our DNA during these 3 months that is in preparation for that evolutionary leap that we are taking as we move further into the 2020s? I don't know. But I do know that's the energy of that whole channel. It's really about the code that we carry deep within us. And the code that we carry deep within us is our DNA. How is our DNA changing in response to the world? And how is the world changing in response to the changes within our DNA? Both of those, right? All right, that is it for me this morning. Tom is reminding me to pull a card for the solstice. I don't necessarily need to pull a card for my birthday, Tom, but thank you. I'll probably do that for myself later. I think what I want to do is pull I'm going to pull a Mayan Oracle card. I don't know why that just popped up, but I also think I want to draw a Galactic Heritage card. So we're going to Mayan Oracle, Galactic Language of Light, and the Galactic Heritage cards. So let's see what we get here. And this will be for us for the week, for the solstice, for whatever it is that you need to hear. And yes, it could even be for my birthday because it's going to be obviously something I need to hear as well. We'll see what kind of card we get. Wasn't that amazing on Friday when we got a card that was based on the same conversation that we were having? All right, so I pulled the card Shadow, Sombra, in Spanish, I'm guessing, Sombra, Shadow. And you're going to have to give me a minute here as I try to figure out where that is, because that's not like one of the usual things. Is there a... Okay, it's not a star glyph. And shadow, it's a lens. Okay, so page 141. Okay, so shadow. The qualities of this are reaction, resistance, attachment, unfinished business, unexpressed aspects, hidden potential, journey to wholeness, healing destructive family patterns, and internalized father-mother. Profound insights and empowerment await your journey into the smoky mirror of Shadow's realm. Shadow is simply the unseen faces of the light, your unfinished business, your fears and doubts, the parts of yourself that you normally avoid or hide. Shadow, the unexpressed, holds the most powerful potentials and important tools for transformation. Shadow gifts you with the vision of how your illusions, your beliefs, judgments, fears, and limitations are the only things that stand between you and the light. Your shadow will offer you signs for growth in everyday life. When you have a charged reaction to any person, situation, or issue, this is a clear signal that a shadow aspect is asking to be seen, owned, and thus transformed. Be direct about sharing what you normally withhold. Fully experience and express your emotions. Honor your relationships by your willingness to address shadows with others. Your reward will be a deeper intimacy, love, and self acceptance. Working with shadow is an important part of the journey of self into perceiving its wholeness. When you personally heal and integrate your own shadow aspects, you also help to heal the larger pattern of the collective mind field. Mind field, not minefield, mind field. Now is the time to heal destructive past family patterns and to work on bringing to awareness unfinished business with both your biological father and mother and the internalized voice of your inner father and inner mother. When you were growing up, you naturally transferred male authority and female nurturance to an outer father and mother figure. Begin the journey of reclamation of male authority and female nurturance of your own inner father mother that only you can offer yourself. Take back the power you gave away growing up to nurture and give yourself permission to be, do, and become all that you are. That's a great card. Great, great, great card. All right. Let's get a Galactic Heritage card. The Galactic Heritage card, of course, is by Alyssa Royal Holt and is also available as an app on your phone, any like device. And these cards are wise. They give us sort of an inkling of what is happening on this planet that is a continuation, perhaps, of more galactic energies. Woo! Okay, so this one popped out. Sharing cultural ideals. That's a great theme for Juneteenth, I think. Okay, and this is the Pleiades of the present. It is sharing cultural beliefs or ideals, excuse me. And card 66, which is double numbers. More power to the 6, number of balance and harmony. And probably should use the Galactic Heritage book to read it. 66. All right. So Pleiadians are enthusiastic cosmic anthropologists. They love studying other cultures and interacting with them. Part of this is sharing the Pleiadian culture with other species as well. This is never to dictate what is right or wrong, but purely for the purpose of exchanging ideas. This natural curiosity is also within you, and this card is suggesting that you embrace this part of yourself a bit more. Don't be afraid to explore and share with others what you've learned, but do so from a place of neutrality and genuine loving kindness. Know that the ideas you share will help others on their spiritual journeys. This card refers to a time in Pleiadian history when they spread their cultural ideals throughout the galactic family, but never in a forceful way. Human history has shown that when evolving groups contact primitive groups, such as the Spaniards and the native peoples of Mexico, there is a tendency to conquer and wipe out the established indigenous culture. This issue is an important one for humans to heal because once humans move out into space, that type of behavior will not be compatible with the galactic community's protocols. An essential step in human evolution is to allow everyone to embrace their own culture and beliefs and to celebrate that diversity. If you pulled this card, it could mean many different things depending on the surrounding cards and your individual circumstance. It may mean that you have a Pleiadian lifetime in which you were one of these cultural engineers who celebrated diversity and served as a teacher for awakening planetary species. Or perhaps as a human now, you serve the function of bringing together different peoples and sharing ideas with no judgment or forcing of beliefs. It could also mean the opposite. Perhaps it is a warning to stop trying to push your beliefs on others. Or maybe someone is doing that to you, and the message is to stand firm in your right to have your own beliefs and celebrate difference. Look at the surrounding current circumstances to understand the more subtle meaning. Ooh, sharing culture. Good cards. Good cards for the week. Good cards for the solstice. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for the birthday blessings. Much love to all of you. I will see you on Friday. Bye for now.